Good afternoon. My name is Richard Hill, and this is a presentation called Autonomous Learning, a case study on 4 university ESL learners and their self-study skills alongside an English language academics purposes course online. Catchy title. My email is at the bottom of the page, rhill06@nufs.ac.jp. If you want to ask me any questions or if you have any advice, please feel free to email me anytime. Okay, so the outline. I'm going to give you some background as to why I want to look at autonomy broadly, talk about meeting my students online, an English club we later formed, how they took control of their journeys using the materials we made together, and a conclusion with my feelings and my opinions on how this observational research went. So why? Yes, last year I worked at major university. Sorry, that'll be 2 years ago now. I worked at major university. Major university has 2 campuses with 2 self-access centers. They were previously called global plazas. I think it might have changed now, but I'm not sure. But when I worked there, I worked as a learning advisor, and one of the features that was already set up was called learning support. And this was like a drop by or an appointment based option for students to use to either get advice, for writing help, for one-on-one conversations, to get feedback about language skills, or sometimes even just to have a conversation or a one-to-one conversation in a second language, English skills and English support was given predominantly. These days, I work at Nagoya University of Foreign Studies, where the symposium is kind of held. I've switched to classroom teaching, but I would like to carry on with some sort of autonomy, broadly autonomy or autonomous research. As you may have done in your respective institutes or workplaces, well, this year we switched to online learning, which gives the research a whole new angle. We pretty much, about 99% of both semesters taught online, with a couple of days face-to-face, but they won't be reflected in this study. Everything that you'll hear from further on in this research was conducted online. So switching to online, of course, I had some concerns. After about a month and a half, it became apparent that homework had increased. The teachers, we had to be flexible, and some people felt the time go faster during the 90 minutes on Zoom. And also there are occasions where you didn't want to hold the students for 90 minutes on Zoom. So then you would hold them for an hour and perhaps increase the homework. So basically the consequence was that homework increased across the whole university, it seemed. I had concerns that some students would not continue with self-study. They would kind of just wait to be given homework, and perhaps that's the case when it's not online too. First year students are excited and they're ready to go to university, and they want to be motivated throughout the year, and they want to really try hard at whatever the teacher gives them. And I was concerned that some students would stop their self-studying. Language learning is a different thing to other content-based teaching, and I genuinely believe that self-study should always occur. You shouldn't be reliant on courses. Being that it was online, though, you lost casual in between conversations and students on campus chat. I think those are valuable, and I think they were missed this year. And I think those little conversations where I can say, "Hey, how you doing? Are you okay? How's your studies?" It was very hard to. I found it hard to conduct that on Zoom, especially if you dropped in on a student one-to-one in a breakout room, for example, and said, "How's your course going?" It gave it a more intense feeling. So you lost the casual things where they might tell you something, or you might glean some information. And then also, amongst all the doom and gloom, I saw an opportunity to research the student self-study habits, to research um, sort of and carry on my autonomous sort of study for myself to improve as a teacher, and also to work out what the students were doing other than the course, and because I think that was more important. When I talk of autonomy, I subscribe to the Benson point of view. Um, Teaching, Researching Autonomy, a very useful book I found. Benson explains that autonomy is a precondition for effective learning. So I thought that when he refers to the learner's broad approach to the learning process, um, I like the idea that it can be different for each student. It's not a case of here is the answer, here is what you must do. It seems to be a case that it's individual, and each student has their own particular goals and own particular style of learning and reflection that they must um, find control of themselves. It's not a particular mode of teaching or learning. So after I met my students online, I conducted questionnaire to both of my first year classes of 20 students each. I used Google Forms because we're online, so I try to embrace it. As you can tell by this presentation so far, I'm not kind of great with computers. I'm very much old school Blackboard kind of person. So recording this has given us a few headaches. So I really appreciate if you're still here by now. But anyways, I did a questionnaire online, and here's what I received from the questionnaire. I had opinions on listening skills. This student thought they needed a teacher to improve their listening. Lots of this. Students wanting casual conversations. Very similar there. Everyday topics. So, because of these responses, um, I thought I had to act if students are concerned with their speaking time. I thought I've got to do something if they'd like to study but feel the homework's increased, and I had to, counteract if there was a problem and they couldn't improve the skills themselves, or if there was a thing that was blocking them, or even worse, if they felt that they couldn't do something themselves. I had to try and change that kind of thinking, because as we all know, they can. Of course, they can do work on listening skills themselves, or whatever particular skill they want to try to improve. So my response was to create an English club. That began in May, June time, and then coming off that came a spin-off debate club. More on that later. We created study monitoring materials for them to use whilst continuing their self-study. I conducted interviews and discussions, and we did collective reflections in English Club, and I encouraged them to reflect by themselves. And I showed the students some value in their studies. We did a movie watching, kind of workshop, music listening, vocabulary, kind of teaching them how to actually know a word, not casual vocabulary study, but a little bit deeper, and confidence building exercise. So these were all designed for them to take home and do themselves. It wasn't just designed to only be conducted at English Club. Okay, but a little more on English Club. It began for 90 minutes once a week online, and I kicked off with various activities, as I've already alluded to. Students were shown how to study, as I've said, and then here's the new bit. 4 consistent students then designed a new English club program, which was tuned into individual and collective goals. So they were already start to take control, which was wonderful. You know, it started off as my thing, and then it became their thing pretty quickly, particularly to the 4 students who always came. Like we had as many as 20, and then sometimes it was 5 or 6 or various numbers, but these 4 students always came, and that was the difference between them and the others. One student of these 4 stayed behind and explained how he would like an opportunity to speak more and to actually have a debate club. So I actually conducted another club. I'm generous like that. And we did 2 clubs this year. One was English club on a Friday, and one was a debate club on a Thursday. But going back to the autonomy side, which is where the English club came in, we made some materials together. Firstly, I gave them some instruction. I said that if we're making a form together to monitor studying, we had to have the form show planning and reflection. It had to be weekly so we could share an English club. And they had to use it to take control of their self-study with whatever goals or content they so desired. Here is what it eventually looked like. Now, we used some books, and we did some research together, and student 1 and student 2 noticed that every time they'd open a study planner, there was always a timetable, so they wanted that. Student 3 and 4 decided a timetable wasn't enough for planning. They wanted to know how they were going to do something in advance, so then it was easier to do when they had to do whatever studying they wanted to proceed with. Also, they wanted to write a focus. And then in the sheet works on 2 sides, so the planning was the top bit, and then we had to have a reflection bit to see how much they accomplished, to see whether they stuck to their planning. So students 1 and 2 checked and added the reflection questions. We kind of cleaned it up together. It was edited and checked by all of us. I was desperate for them to do it themselves, but of course I tweaked a couple of sentences here and there to make it easier. We used this record weekly from June to December. And in June, student 4 actually decided he was having trouble with motivation. So we made this. Ironically, he didn't use it very much, and I'll show you that later. But he, again, using some books and materials and discussion in an English club, we made this. So they saw that one book suggested that you do a line graph of your motivation. And then we found in another book, like a diary style. So you would write about your motivation. I will show you examples momentarily. So here are their journeys. So all students were interviewed in June, December, and they filled out questionnaires, and they were consistently planned and reflected. And they used a motivation sheet, but not as much, as you'll see. Okay, firstly, student 1, whose goal. What's your goal?
My goal is to go to study abroad, so I have to get high score on TOEFL.
Okay, so she had TOEFL goals because she wants to study abroad. Now, this is not completely apart from NUF's goals, but this is it is an external exam. Okay, goody. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is a highlight from her use of the study aid. She wrote, when it says at the bottom, how did you feel about this week's study? And she wrote, I had a part-time job until night on Saturday and Sunday. So when I came back to my home, I was sleepy and I forgot about a writing diary, which is nice in my opinion, because it shows students that if they want to make self-study time, they've got to be careful with part-time job. And it's good because as a teacher, I could never say to them, oh, decrease your hours or increase your, I could never comment on their part-time job. They may well need the money, but if they can come to a realization about their study and work-life balance themselves, surely it would be more effective and more impactful. She also acknowledged that vocabulary study needed morning and evening sessions using this handout. She says, to memorize completely, I studied vocabulary in the morning and before going to bed, which is nice because maybe previously she was only doing one or the other, and now she's really confirmed her technique. And then she did motivation handouts. She had no motivation on a Friday, and it tends to go down a bit. If you look at Monday on the top left-hand side, it's very high, and Tuesday's very high. It droops a bit in the middle, and it stays down on a weekend. So perhaps she needs to do something to motivate herself more on a weekend, if she so wishes to. And then again, further in her recognition about her part-time job and study imbalance, she says on this one, by Tuesday I had classes, so I spent usual time, but winter vacation has started, and she had a part-time job almost every day. So during the not term time, she was still using these forms, which was very pleasing from my point of view. Previously, this student had not even considered planning her self-study.
Yes, I think it was so useful because I didn't have it custom habit for me to plan my studying schedule.
Okay.
But
So she's explained there in her own words, she didn't previously think of customizing or making her own study schedule. Sorry if that was obvious.
But thanks to your handout, I can continue.
She refers to it as my handout, which a little saddens me because we made it together, but I think they're so used to having things just given them to them, and it is called a handout. Perhaps it should have been called up some collaborative sheet or something. And then she further on her motivation sheet, she noted that her boss praised her, and this had a significant effect on her motivation.
Maybe I went to part-time job in the morning that day on the last week Wednesday, and my boss praised me. So that because of it, my mind was I was so happy.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, I guess, if your teacher praises you, it could be common practice, but if someone outside praises your English, is what she was using in her part-time job, she noted in her motivation that made her feel real happy by the end of the day. So her motivation was at a high. Student 2 took the online news and the online style of learning at NUFS quite hard.
To be honest, it didn't mean a thing for me.
right.
Because I think in-person classes is more effective way than this online lesson. When I take direct lessons, I can see my friends' feeling and expressions and teachers' attitudes. So because of online classes, I couldn't any those things. So I just felt isolated, and I also couldn't feel my improvement.
So clearly a student who was a bit worried in June.
Good.
She really helped make the form. Didn't use it that much, but when she did, she focused on TOEIC. And she had a lot to say in December. She didn't use the motivation sheet, but she had a lot to say about homework club and discussion. For now, I will just play the study aid description though. She used it. Just in the interest of time, I'll just do the study aid.
It was useful, I think. It gives an opportunity to rethink my study, the contents, or the time. All of my study are estimated by those seats, I think.
Oh, beautiful.
So as you heard then, I was very happy with that because she was able to take control of her study, and it helped her plan, it helped her allocate what she was going to do and how much time she was going to spend on it. Student 3, again, started the year off slightly negative, quite concerned and worried about online. So this was her state in June.
I thought in high school student, I would go to university, but due to coronavirus, we must use computer and sit down for a long time. So I feel tired.
Yeah, she respectively looked tired in English club, and she kind of had a tough time of it. And then she went on to say she was.
So I wanted to see new classmates in real world. So I couldn't know their character. So I was so worried.
Okay, so there you go. She wanted to see people in the real world, and she couldn't get to know people as such. I'm not sure if this helped her or not, but she did write underneath, how did you feel about this week's studying? Bad, try to have more time. So it kind of highlighted how much time she didn't have for herself and her self-study. And she's definitely a student with a lot of desire to improve, and she's always talking about how she really wants to get better, but she struggled with time this year. And perhaps, of course, it could have helped her in the sense that it acknowledged or reconfirmed that she didn't have much time, but I don't think it improved her autonomous learning or her taking control or her motivation somewhat. But we'll try again in when she becomes a second-year student. She did have some positive things to say about the study aid, though, but I can't work out if she's just being polite because she's a nice kid.
I had time and I should study at that time, so I want to study more, so that's helpful for me.
So she says it was helpful for her. I think she was being kind to me. I'm not sure it was, but you know, you can only ask. Okay, and then student 4. This gentleman was the one who stayed behind and requested more speaking opportunities at NUFS. A very bright person, and I like the way he already showed a bit of autonomy and initiative by asking me to have a second club. I also thought it was a bit cheeky, but you know, respect to him for asking about it.
Any opportunities to speak with the like native speakers or like my friend or my teacher? Yeah, I thought so.
So again, he joined NUFS for the speaking opportunities, but again was concerned once he heard the news about being online.
Yeah, I'm just living alone, so I felt really lonely, or I think I have less opportunities to speak with my teacher or friend.
Okay, so the poor guy living alone, less opportunity. He didn't use any handouts, but he did request for a debate club, and he did talk about the study aids. So, well, he didn't give me any handouts. He might have used it privately, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, this sheet often reminds me to study more and more. So, yeah, I often forgot studying English, and I just like playing games like you. So, yeah, I just want to play games, but I often find the sheet on my wall.
Okay, so a mixed student, like he stays behind and asks for more speaking opportunities, but he also says things like, I just want to play games. You know, I mean, I love his honesty. Okay, so my conclusion from this little observational, you know, autonomous kind of looking research is that I think students need encouragement or simple materials to take control of their self-study. I think they will lose it, particularly in Ichinense, if it's not mentioned. Times to reflect, to talk about private study can really have a positive effect on their motivation. I've seen that in English Club, and they've said that in their interviews. And then the interviews themselves can keep students on track in a difficult online testing time. So you don't have to be a learning advisor. You don't have to be read up on autonomous learning. Just conducting interviews about their private lives can really make the students reflect and take control of their study, or at least consider what they're doing or what they're not doing. Thank you for attending this presentation. The study will be continued, and if you have any questions, there is my email, rhill06@nufs.ac.jp.